Joining us now, Curtis Ellis. Curtis is a senior policy advisor for America First Policies. He was part of the Trump campaign from early on. He was on the transition team. He was a member of the Department of U.S. Labor, and he is the chairman emeritus of the American Jobs Alliance, of which I am the executive director. Curtis Ellis, great to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here, John. You're there in your waders, right in the middle of the swamp. You're a brave man.
I got a houseboat here floating on top of the swamp with a glass bottom. You can see, let's see what's floating down there. Oh, there's Dianne Feinstein. Hey, Dianne. Okay, so, Curtis, the Trump administration and Robert Lighthizer putting $200 billion in tariffs on China. And, of course, the globalists going absolutely coming unglued over this. And now the Chinese saying they're going to retaliate with $16 billion of their own tariffs on, of course, targeted American goods in swing congressional districts, as you've already talked about. But then the president says, go ahead and make my day. Do I have 5 bullets in my gun or 6? How many shots did I fire? Because if you do that, here's what I'm going to do. I got another $267 billion I'll slap on you the next day, and that'll give me tariffs on 50% of everything coming in. And by the way, there's a $375 billion trade deficit going your way. This is a battle the president can't lose, right?
That's right. I think that the Chinese stepped right into the trap that he laid for them. I think he's trolling them. He was trolling them all along. When he slapped the tariffs on them, they did exactly what he wanted them to do and exactly what they shouldn't have done when they retaliated by putting tariffs on American goods coming to China. As you've said many times, we import far more from them than they import from us. So if they want to play that game, they're going to run out of chips. They can't match us each time. We can raise the stakes. They're going to run out of chips because they don't have enough to put. There's not enough. There are not enough goods for them to tariff, right? So he knew that going in. They didn't quite figure that part out. I believe that they suspected they'd be able to get him to back down. They'd get globalist Gary Cohn or somebody else in the White House to talk him off the ledge, just as they did Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came in as president in 1992. He campaigned talking very tough on China. He criticized George H.W. Bush for doing business with the butchers of Beijing. He said, I'm going to get tough. They're mistreating their people. Their human rights record is abysmal. They just slaughtered all those people in Tiananmen Square, and we're not going to do business with the butchers of Beijing. And the Chinese got Robert Rubin, the head of Citibank, who became Treasury Secretary, and all the globalists and all the Wall Street elitists who want to invest in China. They influenced them and got those people to convince Bill Clinton that doing business with China was just great and wonderful, and it was all going to be fabulous. And they thought they were going to be able to turn around Donald Trump the same way. They obviously had bad intelligence, and they don't know that President Trump means what he says and does what he says, unlike Bill Clinton, the weasel. So they miscalculated. They miscalculated badly. And I believe President Trump just suckered him right in. Go ahead, play tit for tat. We'll see how this goes. Further, they don't realize they've already lost, because no matter what happens, if we find a way to climb down off of this mutual tariff action, the damage has already been done. Businesses, these global businesses that are looking for a place to build their next factory, those who are still looking for cheap labor somewhere in the world, they're not looking at China anymore because they know things could go badly wrong there. You've got the tariff situation. Now you've got the Chinese talking about retaliating by punishing the businesses doing business there. Let's hold up regulatory approval on this or that, or let's hold up the customs clearance as they try to ship raw materials in or ship their goods out through the ports. We, the Chinese Communist Party, who control every lever of every government, from local to national level. We can tell our people to slow walk their application for a toilet permit, right? Well, if they do that, they again have played into Donald Trump's hands, which is don't do business in China. They're just shooting themselves in the head by punishing businesses doing business in China. They're making China, it's no longer a safe space for American capital to go. That's already done. So on one level, we've already won, at least won a crucial battle. So the businesses are looking for the exits from China. Anything China does, except change their cheating ways, is going to accelerate the rush for the exits from China. So they're in a bind. And plus now we see their stock market's going down. The economy's not growing as fast as it was. They're talking about printing money in order to prop up their economy and prop up their industries. We know what happens when you start printing money like crazy. It just leads to inflation.
Right.
Plus they have this other problem that just as we see President Trump has said we're going to give our farmers some assistance if they get hurt by China's tariffing the soybean exports, we'll come to the aid of our farmers. Well, China's doing the same thing, but again, the same way they have far more exports, they have far more export industries that they have to support now. And the Chinese central government has said, well, we're going to increase subsidies to the industries that are harmed by this trade war. Well, they've got a whole lot more industries to prop up. So they're in a weak spot. They're in a very incredibly bad bind. And I believe they're starting to realize that they've misplayed this terribly. But again, they're in a bad spot because their entire economy is based on cheating and theft. They are stealing trade secrets because they can't develop them on their own. They are subsidizing industries in order to gain an advantage over competitors. So we're asking them to change their cheating ways, and they're saying, well, we can't. And they made a commitment to become a market economy, to become a free market economy, and stop government subsidies to their export industries. They made that commitment over 20 years ago, and they haven't done it. They don't know how to do it because it's all cronyism and favoritism and basically friends of the fascist thugs that rule the government that get the breaks in industry. That's the big industries. Look, the Chinese people, very industrious people, very clever, hardworking. No matter where you find them in the world, they're the hardest working people in show business, you know. And China, you've got a whole country full of them. But unfortunately, the communist rulers and the Communist Party have tried to monopolize the big action. So they're in a very weak spot.
All right, so Curtis, let me just ask you this. So here's the way a layman, not really understanding all the economic ins and outs, can see how this is a hand, a game, whatever you want to call it, that Trump can't lose. $375 billion last year of our money went to China more than came to us. So that $375 billion that's going into the Chinese government coffers, that's coming right from the United States, all right? So that's
right.
Cash they have. And as a trade war escalates, that cash, I mean, it was $650 billion. Now it's $375. It's going to go down eventually to zero, right? So you're going to lose that money. That's number one. Then you look at the retaliation. So the Chinese says, okay, you do another $200 billion. We're going to do $16 billion. Excuse me? How much? Did you say six? Did you say 16? Like what kind of six? Is it like 16 or did I? No, it's 16. And then the president says, "Go ahead, you do that, and I'm going to do another 275 billion, which is going to be half of everything you import to the United States is going to have a 25% tariff." Here's the thing: you're getting the money. We're not. You need the money. We're obviously surviving without it. That's number one. Here's number two. You're doing this for two reasons. One, you need access to our consumers. Number two, you're spending all this money subsidizing things in order to put our industries out of business so you can corner the market and then eventually raise your prices and make money. Well, if you can't do that in the United States, we can survive without their consumers. They can't survive without ours. So when I get on these networks and the globalists are running around saying this is Armageddon and people are going to be paying so much more money for everything and it's the end of the trade world as we know it, etc. Here's what it means. We can survive without their consumers. They can't survive without ours.
Exactly.
And you see their economy tanking.
And we have the upper hand. Right. You put it exactly right. We can survive without their consumers. We can survive without their factories. They can't survive without our consumers. I know we can survive without our factories because I'm old enough to remember that the world existed. The United States was a fabulous place to live before there were factories in China. Mm-hmm. China. Nixon opened up China in 1972. It didn't even open up to investment until after 1980. People in America still wore clothes, were dressed nicely, had shoes, went to school, had cars, television sets, all that stuff. It all existed. It all happened. It was all going on in America. You can watch I Love Lucy reruns, right? I mean, the 1950s. Communist China was ruled by a crazy dictator named Mao Zedong who killed people. Millions, tens, maybe hundreds of millions of people. There was not one dime of American capital invested in China, and still we had a prosperous country called the United States of America. We can exist without China. They can't exist without us. So, that's the reality, folks. And I have utter confidence, complete confidence in the ingenuity of American business people that even if they don't invest in China, they'll find a way to make money, right? And by the way, in that world that existed before everything was made in China, Americans had jobs as well as money. They were making the coffee makers and the toaster ovens and the jeans and the clothing that they wore and the toaster ovens that they used and the coffee makers that helped them get out the door in the morning, right? They were making these things and getting paid well to make them. So it was really, everything was okay. We can exist without having a storage unit full of too much cheap crap all made in China, so much of it that we can't even keep it in our houses anymore. We have to put it away somewhere. I think the one industry that could be hurt if we were to pursue the course we're on now is the storage locker industry. Americans have so much cheap crap from buying made in China all the time that they can't even keep it in their closets anymore. They have to rent outboard external closets, like you have an external hard drive on your computer to store all your documents and to back up. People have external closets now called the storage locker industry just to put all the junk in, and they usually never go to it. Maybe occasionally you go there to get your barbecue out for the summer months, but so garages and storage lockers will be a lot emptier. But seriously, and this whole thing about consumers are going to pay more, that shows a total ignorance of how these tariffs work.
Why?
First, total ignorance, and if I got a minute, I can explain that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I now, let's say I'm the Gap. And I want to make jeans, and I want to have a line of jeans, of blue jeans. So I'm going to have them made in China because I can get a great bargain on them. So what do? I call a middleman in Hong Kong, and the middleman in Hong Kong says, "Yeah, I can get the jeans. I've got my cousin has a factory in China. He'll make the jeans." So the middleman in China. The middleman in Hong Kong calls up his cousin, and and the factory will sell those jeans for $1 a pair. Mm-hmm. The middleman, the guy in Hong Kong, says to the Gap, look, I'll tell you what, I can get you jeans, I'll sell you jeans for $5 when they come off the boat in Long Beach, California. You give me $5 a pair. And the Gap says, okay, great, deal. And then the Gap turns around and goes to Walmart and goes to whoever they're selling them to, wholesale price, jeans, $25. And then Walmart sells the jeans for $50. They double the wholesale price, right? So it goes from, it's $50. So where does the 10% tariff go? Is the 10% tariff on the $50 list price on the shelf? No. Is the 10% tariff on the $25 wholesale price?
No.
No. Is the 10% tariff on the $5 that the middleman sold them to Walmart for,
No.
to the Gap for?
No.
It's not even on the $5.
It's on the
$10%
buck.
tariff is on the $1. The $1 that the factory in China charged the broker in Hong Kong. So we are talking about a 10-cent increase in price for a pair of jeans, which is being sold for $50.
But if you use that argument, though, I could turn it and say, then why did the tariffs matter then? If it's that little, why bother?
Well, because
What
the
impact?
Chinese, that's the reality. That's how it works. Because China is still making money. Somebody over there in Shenzhen, China, is happy to. So somebody's got to eat that 10 cents or pass it along to the consumer.
Got it. All right, I got to go. Curtis Ellis, I'm out of time. Thank you.